Hi, and welcome back to the Rachel Holmes Health and Wellness Show. In my bid to interview and bring to you some of the world's most prolific and most innovative healthcare practitioners who've got vision and are leading their fields, they're pioneers in the different niches that they are working in. And today is a phenomenal interview. Now, with KSFL and the work that I've done over the years with thousands and thousands of women, I know so many of my clients and customers suffer with migraines, and conventional medicine doesn't always get to the root cause. Well, my next guest, Erin Knight, her program, which is Engineering Radiance, is just that. She has done so much research into the cause of migraines, and she's come up with a phenomenal 4-step approach. Now, if you or anyone you know suffers with migraines, then this interview is going to be a must-see. So please share this video on your pages, subscribe to my YouTube channel, because the information that this contains could literally change people's lives. Hi, Erin. It's fabulous to
Hey,
you. How are you?
great. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. It's great that we've managed to get the time difference right. With GMT, the time in London went back an hour at the weekend. You're in Singapore, so we're in such a different time zone. I'm so happy that we made it happen. Thank you.
Absolutely.
The first thing I always love to ask everyone is your backstory. I like to know how you have come to where you are, your expertise and your experience, and how you have arrived at this point in time. I think everybody always finds these fascinating.
Sure, I'm happy to share that. Well, if you go way back, if you ask really anybody in my family, from a really young age, I was just this girl who always wanted to help people. They have all these cute pictures of me with my Fisher-Price stethoscope running up to them and giving my checkout, making sure they're all okay. So I think that was an early instinct. And here I was, this little girl that wanted to help people, but I'll never forget, I was a little bit older. We went to this amazing family vacation to Spain, and I was so frustrated and sad. My mom was stuck in the hotel room for at least 3 days, just sick with a migraine and not able to join us on the vacation. So, on the one hand, I was frustrated I couldn't help her, and then on the other hand, as a kid, I was just like sad that mom wasn't there to experience things and be with us. So that was a early influence, you could say. And then as it turned out, I later ended up getting migraines myself, and for a long time was stuck in this mode of not really thinking there was much I could do about it other than managing them. Just having seen her, seeing her go through that as I grew up, and just being part of popular culture, we'd sort of manage our migraines and do what we can, but they were always coming at the most inconvenient times. Yeah. When I had a work trip or even a vacation, something that threw me off my rhythm, or maybe a big deadline or something that was stressful, then that's when I got a migraine. And it finally came to a I guess you could say, ahead when I was at the ripe old age of 27. I just completely burnt out. All this stress had piled up, and not just the migraines, but now I was having autoimmune issues, chronic pain, digestive issues you don't want to know about. And I just couldn't imagine living the rest of my life that way. And I couldn't accept that doctors were telling me that they couldn't do anything for me. And so what I studied in school, my first career was as a pharmaceutical engineer. And I just decided, I'm smarter than this. If I put my engineering mind to work as a problem solver, I can figure this out. So that's when I discovered functional medicine. And for engineer, functional medicine was so aligned, made so much sense, because it's all about the root causes, right? So I started looking into the root causes for why I was getting migraines, why I was feeling so terrible, and it turned out to be a lot of different things, some hormonal issues, digestive issues, even detoxification issues. And it took some time, but as I started to work on those, and I spent 3 or 4 hours a day learning and researching different options, and actually like tens of thousands of dollars trying out different modalities and continuing education in the field. And finally looked back one day and realized the migraines had disappeared. And no one was talking about this even being possible. And here, by working on my health at a functional level, I didn't have to worry about migraine triggers and all that anymore. And I knew that if I could help someone like my mom, like myself, get off the sidelines and start participating in life again, I had to do that. So that's when I went back and reverse engineered all the key pivotal things that I had done and put it together in really awesome 4-step process I call the Migraine Freedom Plan. That's what I help with people with now.
So at the time when you were suffering from your migraine, so you were young, you're only in your 20s and your teens, and your mum obviously at that time, if you were young, she would be maybe in her 20s as well, so quite young. So what were the triggers? What do you think, looking back, were the triggers? And was it diet related? Was it stress, emotional related? And what kind of medication were you being put on at that time?
Sure. So at the peak of it, I would say in high school, I was getting them 4 or more times a week. So I was on. That's kind of borderline for where they don't want you to be taking the prescription medication anymore, because it's known even in the medical field, if you take that more than about 3 times a week, then you can be getting more headaches just as a rebound from it. Yeah, and I was taking a lot of Advil, like ibuprofen and things like that, which I think led to my issues when I was 27 because it destroyed my gut lining and all that. But that was the main things. I found a big improvement when I became an adult and started sleeping regularly and eating regularly. I think that they have been especially bad in that high school phase where, at least in the US, our school systems don't provide the most nutritious foods. No, so that was great. I remember having like a pretzel and a Diet Coke for lunch most days. You can imagine that contributes to headaches, but at the time, high school students, you don't even make the connection between what you're eating and how you're feeling. So that got a lot better as I got to be an adult and regulated things a little bit. But then they were still in that mode of just showing up when I was under a lot of stress. So even though they had gotten better, they would just show up when a thunderstorm came through, and you add that with maybe a stressful event at work, and when that stress starts to pile on, then your body can't handle it anymore, and that's when it bubbles over into a migraine.
Do you think there was any connection with your mom suffering from migraines as well? And you think there was a genetic connection there, or do you think it was lifestyle connection?
Lifestyle and genetic. I think our genetic, so this is fun to talk about. I think that for all of us, we have our stress show up in different ways. So for some people, when that stress builds up, they'll have digestive issues. For some people, when that stress builds up, they'll have rashes on their skin. For some of us, that stress builds up, we get a headache. And that way the stress shows up, I think, is genetic. But that doesn't mean that I genetically have to have migraines for the rest of my life. If I work on lowering the stress, then I'm still have that potential to get one in my life sometime, but I'm much less sensitive to any triggers like bright lights or thunderstorm patterns and things like that.
So you did all the research and you started to reverse engineer what had worked for you, and you kind of worked out that you weren't having migraines. So then how did you put that together in something that was, I would imagine that somebody that suffers from migraine, just like you, gets to the end of the road and just will try anything. They probably, medication's not working, it's completely ruining their life and their experiences and how they are progressing through life. So how did you kind of put that, what does it look like, that 4-step plan, and how did you implement it?
4-step plan, sure. So the 4 steps are dream, dive, heal, and thrive. And the first one, dream, is just about dreaming about what your life will look like if you were migraine free. If somebody with migraines has probably had them for so long, it's hard to imagine what that would even be like. But I want people to recognize how much migraines are impacting your life and your family. I saw that as a kid with my mom, but then I also remember the day that I finally decided to go see a naturopath myself. I had been burnt out and suffering with pain and fatigue for months, actually, and doctors had told me they couldn't help me, so I just didn't know what to do. I would come home from work and lay on the couch and just be a zombie, until one day my boyfriend asked me if I didn't love him anymore. I had no energy for the relationship. I was trying to stay alive, and I hadn't even realized how my poor health was impacting this important relationship. And that's what helped me realize that I needed to get help. So I walk people through looking at how migraines are not just impacting how you feel physically, but how are they impacting your earning potential? Are they impacting your productivity, your relationships, and what is it holding you back from doing? Are you avoiding travel or something fun just because you're afraid it's going to give you a migraine? And this drives the rest of the process. So that's why I put it first and think it's so important.
Oh, yeah, it really is. So then how do you move on from that?
So the second one is dive, and we dive into the data about your health. So for people with migraines, a lot of times they're made to feel like they could be crazy, like they have so many health complaints and so many triggers and they're not connected. They start to feel crazy. So I want to show you that you're not crazy and prove it with functional lab data and start to find the root causes. I remember I would often go to a party or something like that, even if I didn't feel like it, just because I think, oh, I have a headache is such an overused excuse. I didn't want people to think I was making it up or being antisocial. So even when I was blinded with pain, I would feel bad leaving work early. And I think that's just kind of a cultural association a lot of people with migraines have. So I want to help people in this second phase look at patterns in hormones, digestion, detoxification, and immune system, kind of the functional basics, and find hidden imbalances. And clients will tell me that they learn more about their bodies in this step than after years of going to neurologists and other doctors, just because they're finally getting to see it for themselves and understand how everything's interconnected, which is really cool.
That's interesting. So if somebody comes to you and you go, you take them through the process, do you, as part of the plan, do they have lab testing with you? Do you show them where to go and what samples to send off? And can anyone access that wherever they are in the world? So, people watching the video, probably from the UK, I know people hear that going, oh my gosh, this is ticking all these boxes. I need to work with you, Erin. So are you able to facilitate that for that client?
Yep, I work with people all over, and we have different lab companies that we recommend depending on what's convenient for them. But basically, we, as functional diagnostic nutritionists, we help you access labs that you can do at home. Saliva, for example, or urine kits that you take care of at home and just ship in. And then when the results come back, we help you understand how to interpret it and how to understand what it means in terms of how your body's should be functioning, what this is pointing to. So it's very different from a medical approach because we're not looking at symptoms or diseases. We're really looking at how your body's processing nutrients, how balanced your hormones are, and things like that.
So it would be would you be testing for adrenals and thyroid function? And yeah, it's so interesting. Nearly everybody I've spoke to over the last couple of weeks, whichever their area of expertise, it always comes back to testing and then looking at those hormone levels. That is it's key. It's the foundation to health.
It's key. It's key. And then to finally see on paper that there's a real reason why you're feeling blah, let's say, or why you're sensitive to noises and bright lights and red wine and your friend Susie isn't, helps people feel like they're not crazy and feels like there's a real reason to start doing those self-care things that we all know are good for us, like yoga class, meditation, etc., etc.
It's just wonderful news. So you've got the results back, you've done the lab testing, and you've interpreted the data. So generally, where do you take a client from there?
From there, so that goes into the third phase, which is the healing phase, and that's really about dedicating in your mind putting aside some time for self-care and setting the conditions for your body to heal and repair itself in a way still that's approachable for a busy professional. I get it. I mean, I was a busy engineer when I was going through all of this myself, so I know it's not possible for everybody to just take off and go to a yoga retreat for 6 months, which would be nice, but we have to figure out ways to get these things into real life. Also, know that there's a time that we're going to make an extra effort towards healing before we move on to step 4, which is as somebody achieves freedom from migraines. That's great. They're going to start participating in life again and getting maybe more active. So how can we sustain all these healthy habits in a realistic and simple way, finding the best apps for you and the best tools and tricks to make this a lifelong healthy lifestyle.
I love that. And is it something that you are cured of? Or is it, if perhaps now, you've gone so far down the road now, and I'm sure your nutrition, your health and your self-care is, 90%, but I'm sure with everyone, there's always a bit of wiggle room when things go off track. Does that now set your migraines off in your clients, or are they migraine free for kind of ever?
Oh, well, back to kind of the original way our stress piles up, right? I now understand and somebody that's been through this process will hopefully understand that stress layers, and you have to be mindful of that. And then after the healing phase, maybe you're no longer on a super restricted allergy diet or something like that. Maybe that you can reintroduce some foods and things like that, but you always have to be mindful of how the stress is layering on, and take good care of yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be back where you started. So if you have that tendency for your stress to build up and turn into a migraine, I think that will always be there, but what you're doing is lowering the threshold of stress so that you have more wiggle room, more resilience to the things that you can't control, like jet lag or bright sunshine that you want to be out in and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Of course, absolutely, yeah, it's totally fine. So what's your 4th step? Thrive.
Thrive, yeah. So that's somebody's getting back to or into the life that they want, maybe for the first time, and really participating in the way they want to.
I love that. I think a question that comes to mind is, I know that when I'm dealing with a lot of my women's groups from around the UK, so many women are, as we talked about earlier, are suffering from exercise-induced migraine. So pick up on that. And also many of our groups are maybe having children that are suffering from migraines, very young kids. So it'd be great if you could maybe touch on those 2 points and give people some tips and ideas of what they can do.
Okay, let's start with the exercise-induced migraines, because that's definitely a thing. And how do you know if you had it? Well, you'll know if you have one. So if you're prone to migraines, it doesn't necessarily mean you're prone to exercise-induced migraines, but for certain people, they've probably experienced this before, so they'll know. But certain things like rotating your head quickly or bending over or whatever can trigger that migraine, just like a certain food could trigger, a certain lighting could trigger smells for certain, different people. And they're more common in really hot, humid weather or at high altitudes.
Right.
And then I guess, since my whole mission is to help people start participating in life again, we'll talk a little bit about how to manage them, but then always remember too, as you start to improve your health at a more foundational level, this might no longer be a trigger for you. So that's the good news. And I don't want to scare people away from exercise when we talk about exercise-induced migraines, right? It's just certain people find this to be a trigger. So what do you do about it? One thing is, you may already be aware of other clues that a migraine's coming on. So some tightness. Some people have nausea or sensitivity to light in the days or hours before that they actually get that migraine. So if you already know that you're kind of in that mode, then let's avoid exercise if you know you're prone to that being a trigger. That, if you go to a CrossFit class, that could just put you over the edge into a full-blown migraine, whereas if maybe you backed off and spent some quiet time listening to gentle music or something like that, maybe you could pull it back and avoid the migraine to begin with. So that's one thing to think about.
I think just thinking about that logically, I suppose if migraines are layers of stress often building up, then if someone is very stressed and then is hitting the exercise that is stress, it's going to create, the body's going to, it's going to be reacting to a stressor. Cortisol's going to be raised, the adrenals are going to be overworked. So I suppose it makes sense, you know, if you are very stressed and you're prone for migraines, hitting yourself with another huge stressor of going to some kind of intense class or workout is going to add to it, isn't it? I suppose it's really. Whereas yoga,
one thing you could do is just pick a more gentle kind of workout, like a walk or Pilates or yoga. If you know like swimming always gives you a migraine or something like that. In the meantime, while you're healing and working on your health and stuff like that, pick the more gentle workouts, because exercise is still good for people even with migraines. We don't want you to have to avoid it completely.
I love that. Yeah. And what do you think about the children's aspect, Erin? I mean, we do hear a lot of children that are suffering from migraines and, you know, like yourself when you were younger and your mom. So what would you suggest if anyone listening or reading, watching has got a child that is suffering?
Young children, I don't really speak to, but I mean, if you think about it in the same mentalities of looking for underlying cause, look for some food sensitivities, which are so common now, unfortunately, for various reasons, including just our food supply has changed, and a lot of children have gut dysfunction and things like that. Mine came on more as a teenager, so I'm sure there's a hormonal component, but again, you have to wait till they're adult to start searching for those underlying causes and just questioning why they're happening, not just how to manage it with ibuprofen.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that taking those painkillers was a massive contributing factor to yourself and many people going forward, that has had such an effect on your digestive health, on your gut health, because it's perhaps, you know, damaged your gut permeability?
I've done a lot of gut healing work to recover from it, and I mean, when I was a teenager, I don't think it was as well known that it could be a problem. We just took them kind of like Tic Tacs. You have a headache? Take a thing. So now we know better. So a lot of people know better. So that's one thing.
I mean, as a pioneer in this field, you know, where do you see this going? Where do you want to take your business and your practice, Erin?
Well, first thing is really just to help people know that there is a possibility to get to the root cause and discover freedom from migraines, because like I said, with the dream phase, if you don't know that it's possible, then you'll never work towards getting there. So by talking about it with people like yourself and blogging and all this kind of thing, is just to inspire women to start to think about it beyond our typical list of food triggers or environmental triggers, and think about some of the internal stressors that could be contributing to.
And it's migraines. A lot of people, again, watching this video will be at the moment probably coming up perimenopausal, menopausal women. Maybe they've never experienced migraines perhaps before. Is this an age range that some people may find that they are starting to have migraines? You know, is that a migraine if anyone's experiencing something migraine-like symptoms and yet they perhaps never had them before in their life?
Mm-hmm. The most common concentrated age, well, first of all, it's mostly women. 3/4 of the sufferers are women, so that alone tells you there's a hormonal component, right? And then it's more on the younger women side, but people will notice a change either for the better or for the worse, like before, after, during or after a pregnancy. Sometimes they actually get better after menopause and resolve naturally, but sometimes that time that shifting and your hormones are moving there's a lot of internal stressors going on in that time too that can make them worse for a time.
Yeah. And is it worth looking at having a SPECT scan or a brain scan, or you know, do people need to go that far?
Yes, definitely should rule out anything serious like that. I think when people come to talk to me, I assume they've already seen their doctor and have ruled out things like that, because headaches can also be a signal, or your body trying to tell you something's wrong, right? So sometimes they can be a signal of something serious if they come on suddenly or change significantly or something like that. That should be a clue that even if you've been checked years ago, maybe you should go and get checked out by a doctor again, because It's your body trying to communicate with you. But, you know, if they don't have anything to offer you, then know that you can at least work on reducing inflammation and stress yourself.
Is there anything across the board that food-wise that people should totally push out the diet? Anything, I suppose, you know, anything that's pro-inflammatory is going to be good to take out, but is there any, you know, kind of a hit list that you think, gosh, if you've got migraine, definitely needs to go?
Well, number one that anybody can do, no matter what your diet, is balance your blood sugar. Because blood sugar spiking and crashing can definitely be a main trigger for people, and it's an unnecessary trigger, something we can all avoid just by avoiding sugary snacks and too much caffeine and alcohol and things like that, and having a more steady supply of fuel in more proteins and more fats and stuff like that, slower burning fuel. So that's definitely number one. Also, there's a lot of food additives and things like artificial sweeteners, MSG, that are just known to be common problems for me. I mean, they're not healthy to begin with, but they are also known to be triggers. To this day, I'm pretty sure if I had MSG, it would give me a migraine like this. It's just evil stuff. So that's a good place to start. A pretty safe across the board guideline.
And then things like, you know, hydration, you know, making sure that you drink, just the very, very, very basics, you know, making sure that people are getting the basics of good nutrition every day.
Yeah, and back to the exercise-induced migraines, I mean, you hear it so much, you almost get tired of hearing it, like cool down, warm up, stay hydrated with electrolytes and all that stuff. But if you're getting migraines, especially when you exercise, then make sure you're doing the basics. At a minimum, take extra good care of yourself. And then I also mentioned the whole thing that it's more common if it's hot and humid. So just go to a gym that's air conditioned, or stick to the early morning workouts, or the evening workouts. It sounds maybe a little too obvious, but let's do the basics.
It's never hot and humid in the UK. Maybe for like 2 months a year.
Yeah. Well, if you go, let's say you go on vacation and then you find that your normal jog gives you a migraine, well, you can know why.
Oh, Erin, this has been phenomenal. I think, gosh, what you're doing is just going to help. It's life-changing for so many people. Where can people access you? Come and say hi on social and find out what you're doing, and you know, maybe get involved, or maybe do one of your programs if they feel that they are, you know, really, really suffering with migraines. How can they get to you?
Get to me. Well, I'd love to have people stop by on Facebook. It's just Engineering Radiance is my community page. I'm always posting migraine-related articles and tips and things like that. And then if you're curious if, let's say, hormones are playing a role in your migraines, because we talked about perimenopause and shifts and hormones and things like that, I've got a quick check, hormone balance quick check, where you just go download a one-page sheet and do a little assessment on some of your common symptoms, like feeling lightheaded or PMS symptoms and things like that. And from that, you'll know if investigating in your hormones is worthwhile and something you should take a deeper look at. And so to get that, just go to engineeringradiance.com/gift, and you can download it right away.
That's fantastic. On Twitter, or Instagram, Snapchat, are you on everything else, or?
Oh yeah, well, not Snapchat. I think I'm too old for that, but everything else.
But we can find you. Oh, that's wonderful. I really appreciate your time today. What you've shared with us has been so fabulous, and I know so many people are going to be helped and at least maybe see some light at the end of the tunnel if they are suffering from migraines. So,
thanks, Rachel. It was really fun talking with you.
I'm sorry.